Moving on to the second round, everything, and I mean everything, gets double. A great take gives you 400 points. A good take gives you 200 points. An okay take gives you 100. And a bad take, you still come home empty-handed with 0 points. The stakes rise each and every single round. Let's move on to what was probably the most hyped game of week 16 between the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers in a game that, listen, if you pick Baltimore, I don't even know if you saw this coming. The Ravens dominating the Niners 33-19 in San Francisco. Brock Purdy with a rough night, 4 interceptions. Meanwhile, Lamar Jackson, almost 300 yards in total, rushing and throwing, and is arguably the front runner for MVP. So I'll ask you, Anth, to start this segment. Is Lamar Jackson the MVP today?
Well, let's first get my 50 points. Crack them if you got them, son. So we're going to start off with that. We're going to start off with that 50. And this is when we sent out the questions earlier, this is kind of one I mulled over a bit. Like, this is my answer is different than what the perception of the rest of the NFL might be. Is he being pushed towards being the MVP in the NFL? Probably. Is he to me? No. I think the MVP of the NFL is the guy that was on the other side of the field against him in CMC.
Okay.
When I watch Baltimore, especially against the 49ers, sure, Lamar played great. He had 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he's winning football games, right? But to me, CMC, without CMC on San Francisco, they're gone. He's playing like an MVP all day. He's going to finish the season with probably 1,700 rushing yards, anywhere between 16 and 18 rushing touchdowns, and then another possibly 600 to 800 yards receiving. Those are godly numbers for a running back. And then you look over at Lamar Jackson's numbers, who are still good, and I know he's missed a couple games, but I think he has 19 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions. That does not scream MVP to me. And just because your team's playing well, that shouldn't automatically force you into MVP discussion. The only reason he's at the top of the board right now in MVP discussion is because the other 2 guys ahead of him have played bad. Brock Purdy threw his way out of the MVP, and Dak Prescott hasn't had 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games. So there was 2 guys that were clearly ahead of him 2 weeks ago. And I still think there should be 1 guy clearly ahead of him, CMC. So to me, I'm not sold on him as an MVP. Do I think the NFL is going to push a quarterback to be MVP? Yeah, I do. I don't think Christian McCaffrey wins, but I believe he's a better player for his team than Lamar is for his team.
You know, I heard the great Barry Sanders saw him tweet today that they might actually, because of the fact that the NFL probably does want a quarterback to an MVP because of the value of the position, that you could have like a split MVP like he had with, like Barry Sanders had, I believe it was with Brett Favre all those years ago. So you could potentially see a situation like that. And you make a good case because, listen, you see, and we've seen the games, whether it's the games Christian McCaffrey's gotten injured in or this one where the Ravens built so big of a lead, the Niners have to abandon the run game. Just doesn't look like the same offense. And even still, they're getting the ball to him pretty consistently. So good take, Adam. I'm going to give you a good take. Obviously, the 50 points extra, getting it to 500 points to take the lead right now, but a good take right there by Anth to take the lead here on the 8 o'clock spot. Moving on to AJ, is Lamar Jackson the MVP of the NFL today?
Crack him if you got him. Okay. Honestly, is it just me, or has this been one of the hardest years to like pick out a clear-cut MVP? We've gone from Jalen Hurts to Brock Purdy to Dak Prescott, probably someone else in there too. Now we're on to Lamar Jackson. Every single week when someone performs well and the other quarterbacks don't perform well, someone's taking the next leap there. The only one that has been consistent in their position is CMC. So the question that comes down to me is, what do Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, and Patrick Mahomes, what can they do in these next 2 weeks to take over what Lamar Jackson is doing? If Lamar Jackson just continues to play like he is, nothing necessarily exceptionally special in his stats, but if he's going to win for his team and be the quarterback with the team that's dominant, yeah, the NFL is going to point his way. So, I mean, if anyone balls out and Jackson falls flat, then we could be having a different conversation. But like right now, heading into week 17 of this season, like I don't love it, but it is Jackson in terms of how the NFL is looking at this.
Yeah, potentially so. And obviously you bring up the aspect of a lot can happen in the next 2 weeks. And it has been, I completely agree with you. It's been the tightest MVP race I can remember. And it's not just the fact that it's tight. I think we've had the most MVP candidates going into week 17 that I can remember to this point. Obviously, the most positional players, Tyreek Hill is brought up, and CMC, as you guys have both mentioned. And that's something that I've argued with Lamar is that, and I'm cool with him being the front runners because Lamar's value, his stats are almost never going to just blow you out of the water, but his ability to make plays with his legs, and obviously without Mark Andrews, even still to go on the road to San Francisco and do what he did was pretty darn impressive. So AJ with the 50-point crack advantage, obviously the edge. I'm going to give you a good take as well. So you are tied right now with Ant there at the top. We'll see what Adam can do in response, but a good take there by AJ here on the 8 o'clock spot. To Adam now, finally, is Lamar Jackson the MVP to you today? There it is.
Crack him if you got him.
Crack him if you got him.
Effect of the show.
Okay, so your question is Lamar Jackson the MVP to me today? Well, after last night's performance, he had 105 rating for his performance against San Francisco 49ers as he carved, as a Carving It Up podcast, as he carved up the
I like it.
San Francisco defense. He managed the game very, very well. So today, yeah, I would say Lamar is the front runner. I do subscribe to the thought that Baltimore's team, is an MVP team. They are a clear front runner to going all the way that they just dominated that juggernaut. Everybody thought that the San Francisco 49ers team was above everybody else. And to what Ant said in the first question, they had takeaways. They had 4 or 5 takeaways in the game last night. So, the defense did their job, and then you have a quarterback like Lamar Jackson coming in and able to handle the game, doesn't throw any interceptions, has some rushing yards, throws 2 tutties and 250 yards. Yeah, he played like an MVP candidate. If you look at the rest of the season, he has the Dolphins on the 31st, and then they also have your Pittsburgh Steelers at the end of the season. So they have some pretty decent games coming up, opposed to San Francisco cakewalk games, Washington Commanders, and then you have the Rams. Now the Rams have been stepping it up a little bit this second half of the season. And I'm saying the Rams aren't the Rams that we've seen previous years, but I do think that the Dolphins are going to pose a bigger challenge to the Ravens. And if Lamar Jackson can continue on the pace that he did against the San Francisco 49ers, I think he's going to take the MVP title at the end of the year.
Yeah, he's got a great opportunity to do so, obviously. And again, something else is I just, sort of thought about this as you were saying that the Ravens being the best team in the league. We saw you guys, Anthony and AJ mentioned about Christian McCaffrey that, we've seen the Snyder's offense without him. We saw last year this offense without Lamar Jackson. Now, I know it's a different system, new offensive coordinator, some of the new pieces like OBJ and Zay Flowers, but this offense for Baltimore went from scoring darn near 30 a game to barely breaking double digits. So, just the value to this team is something that's why I said, you can't always measure it in stats, although obviously I think he'll make great points across the board. Adam right now is in first place, ladies and gentlemen. Adam takes the lead going into the third and final round, at least the final round involving all 3 contestants of the Cowboys Cam Fan. So shout out Adam Bessie, first place here on the Cowboys Cam Fan special on the Grid Network on the 8 o'clock spot. So
MVP front runner with 19 touchdowns. Give me a break.
I'm just saying you can't measure it in just the stat. I'm just saying.
19 touchdowns. Imagine Dak Prescott had a team to have 4 interceptions, 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. They'd be like, that's nothing. That's nothing
you
special.
talking about if he did what Purdy did?
Yeah, well, no, even just like Lamar Jackson against the Niners, he had 2 touchdowns with 250 yards. If that's what Dak did against Miami, I don't know. It's just a double standard.
Well, yeah. But all of us here have been fighting that for years. We're on the same page there. We're on the same page. There's no question about it.